The NBA is notorious for having bad boys such as Dennis Rodman, Rick Mahorn, Bill Laimbeer, and even Allen Iverson had his own share of his bad boys antics, and really, why not? The NBA is full of players who grew up in not just poor environments, but crazy environments filled with drugs, crime, sex, and all those things, and while many of them get to leave the streets just never leaves them. It becomes a sort of addiction or drug for them. Some of these people even made life worse for themselves because of all the money and fame they were exposed to. The bad boys we are going to be talking about today were even worse than the likes of Dennis Rodman or Rick or Bill. These bad boys committed murders, sex offenses, one of them even killed his best friend, and another one even robbed 14 Domino's delivery vans. They are the worst of the worst and were convicted and sent to prison for their crimes. These are NBA players you didn't know were criminals. But before we get into the video, if you want to win a PS5 with NBA 2K22 and Madden NFL 22 included, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to enter the giveaway. Daryl Allums. When the team was researching this topic, we just couldn't leave this guy out of the mix, because really, how does a person move from being a basketball player that is earning hundreds of thousands of dollars to robbing Domino delivery trucks? That's just the lowest of the lows, but I guess you can only be Daryl Allums for that to happen to you. Daryl Allums' story is proof of how things can get good so fast and then spin out of control the next minute. So, if you're out there or anywhere right now at the peak of your powers, try to maximize the best of it so you don't lose everything. So, what did happen to Daryl Allums? Daryl won a full scholarship to UCLA and was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, but was immediately cut off after just 22 games. He later went overseas, playing in the Philippines and later for a team in Switzerland. When he was playing in Switzerland, things were looking good and he was banging in games, enjoying the time of his life, and then life happened. He tore ligaments in his right knee, and after that, his basketball career was over. Just like that. After his contract with the Swiss team ran out, Allums took a $10 per hour job. Shocking, right? He reportedly claimed he was doing good, but little did we know that his whole life was spinning out of control. According to a report, Allums first tried cocaine for the first time in 1976, and his life became nothing but cocaine after that. He divorced his wife, moved in with his girlfriend where both of them spent all their money buying drugs. After that, he turned to robbery to make money. He started with stores and then cocaine dealers before he began the Domino's pizza robberies. He committed 14 Domino robberies in a spree of 6 months, and in each case, he would call the pizza outlet, ask for a small pizza and a 6-pack of soda. When the delivery man arrived at those locations, he would rob them with a knife or a screwdriver. He was later caught and has been held in prison since then. I don't know why he chose to rob a pizza delivery man, but maybe he was a hungry man. J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith is currently in retirement after winning his second championship with the Lakers in 2020. J.R. might be retired now, but his 18-year career in the NBA has been filled with so many mistakes to count, such as the time he forgot to score at the 2018 finals.
Hill misses. Rebound goes to the Cavs. J.R. Smith brings it back out. Throws it to Hill. Hill shot blocked.
JR once said, "I've messed up so many times in my life, I can't just point at one thing to be mad at." That blunder eventually cost Cleveland and LeBron James the title, but that was just one of the many mistakes JR was talking about. The biggest mistake in JR's life happened back in 2009, and it cost him the life of his best friend. It's a day that will probably haunt JR for the rest of his life. Many people have one addiction or the other, whether it is drugs or alcohol or betting, and so on. But for JR, nothing gets him high as much as getting in a car and driving as fast as he can. Around this time, Smith already had 27 points and 5 suspensions on his driver's license, which included 4 speeding tickets between April of 2005 to January of 2006, which is crazy. How is it even possible in the first place to have 5 freaking suspensions? On this fateful night, Smith was in his black SUV driving to his family house in New Jersey with his best friend Andre Bell, who was only 21 at the time. As soon as they got on the highway, there was only one thing on Smith's mind, and that was, how fast can I go? How fast can I get? And soon enough, he was going 67 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone, and then in a blink of an eye, his reckless driving saw him hit another car as he ran into a stop sign. Smith was lucky. He got away with a few scratches and a minor injury to his shoulder. However, his best friend Andre wasn't as lucky. Bell had fractured his skull, and 2 days later, his brain shut down and he was confirmed dead. Smith would have been charged for DUI manslaughter and would have spent a large chunk of his career and life in prison if not for Bell's mother, Wanda, who couldn't handle the thought of losing another son who was like a brother to her son. So Bell's family filed a wrongful death suit against Smith. Still, Smith was charged with reckless driving, failure to obey a stop sign, improper passing, speeding, and failure to wear a seatbelt. Speaking on the day of his trial, a distraught Smith said,
It's unbearable to deal with, and I am deeply sorry. I never intended this to happen. It just tears me up that it has to. It went down like that.
Smith was later sentenced to 90 days in jail with the option of spending just 30 days in jail if he performed 500 hours of community service. After JR was sentenced, Andre's mother walked up to JR with tears in her eyes and hugged him. She knew she did what Andre would have wanted her to do. As horrible as the accident was, especially given that she lost her son in the process, she still told JR she loved him and walked away. She's the reason Smith can walk around in the college today as a free man living with his 3 children. Since the time of the accident, JR has received 2 more speeding tickets and 3 license suspensions in New Jersey. This man just never learns, does he? Hopefully, everyone else watching this will learn from this and remember that before they press that pedal down, someone could get really hurt and even die from your actions. Allen Iverson. It's hard to talk about bad boys and not add the one player who divided fans more than anyone in the NBA. Allen Iverson is right up there as one of the most loved, the most hated, and the most popular figures to ever play the game of basketball. His haters will say he was a ball hog who never led the Sixers to an NBA title, and that he brought a bad image to the NBA. But there's no doubt that this guy is the best little man to ever play the game, and AI remains one of the most dominant scorers ever. Emphasis on ever. But Iverson's career could have pretty much ended even before it started. Iverson, like most of the guys on the list today, had it tough growing up. His mom gave birth to him when she was just 15 years of age, and his father disappeared afterwards. As if that wasn't bad enough, Iverson grew up in Hampton, Virginia, a city where whites and blacks didn't mix, and when they did meet, it was for violent reasons. But Iverson was a star at sports, and that was pretty much the only thing he ever owned. He played both football and basketball and took both teams to the state championship, and he was high school player of the year in both sports. And just when everything seemed to be going well for him, everything was burning right in front of him moments later. It all began on the night of February the 14th. Iverson was with his homeboys at a bowling alley in his hometown of Hampton. They were all there talking, laughing, and having fun. There was another group of white men bowling as well, and then the next minute there was an all-out brawl. Nobody really knows what happened except the people who were there themselves. Iverson and his friends claim that the white boys called them the N-word and threw the first punches, while the white boys claim that it was Iverson and his friends that threw the first punches. Whatever happened first, we really cannot say, but things quickly got heated up and the fight became a white kids versus black kids with chairs used as their primary weapons. After the brawl, only 4 people were arrested, all of them black and one of them was AI. According to the police, Iverson was arrested for supposedly hitting a white woman over the head with a chair and knocking her unconscious in the process. It looked as if the politics of the arrests were racially motivated. Apart from the fact that Iverson and his friends were the only ones arrested and none of the white boys were arrested, Iverson was convicted of maiming by mob, a statute that was used to discourage lynchings. This charge meant that Iverson could be tried like an adult at the age of 17. Not too long after, Iverson was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. AI spent 4 months in the Newport prison facility before the then Virginia governor Douglas Wilder granted him clemency due to insufficient evidence of Iverson's guilt. It's just funny because if there was not enough evidence to begin with in the very first place, on what grounds was Iverson now charged to court and convicted of a crime? Even though Iverson had no criminal records before then, he was sent to prison and denied bail pending appeal. Iverson maintains that he was not directly involved in the incident. So just imagine what would have become of Iverson if the governor had not stepped in. Nobody would have seen the making of a star and one of the biggest names and talents in the history of basketball. Iverson escaped from this one, but the next person actually shot and killed a person. Javaris Crittenton. Most people go into the NBA so that they could leave the life of the hood or street behind, but not Javaris. Instead, Javaris chose to join a street gang just when he was making a name for himself in the NBA, and it would eventually end up costing him his career and life when you look at it. Maybe he thought it was cool or something, but the truth is nobody ever knows what goes on in Javaris's head. Let's talk about how Crittenton went from pulling a loaded gun on his teammate to committing murder. This is the story and lesson for anyone on how you can destroy your own life with your own hands. Javaris joined the NBA as a rookie in 2007 and played in the NBA for 3 seasons before his career in the NBA came to a halt. He was selected by the Lakers as the 19th pick in the 2007 NBA draft, but he played just 22 times for the Lakers, and it was around this time that Javaris thought, I think it would be a good idea to join a gang. So he went ahead and joined the West Los Angeles street gang, popularly known as the Mansfield Gangster Crips, something he would later admit during a guilty plea in the court later in his life. If only he had known that it wasn't just all fun fun and games or the consequences that would come with it, but he was apparently too stupid to know that or even realize that. It's impossible to talk about how irresponsible or crazy a person Javaris is without first mentioning that day in December that he pulled out a loaded gun on his teammate JaVale McGee and Gilbert Arenas in the locker room. How can you even be so silly? Apparently, Javaris and McGee had been playing a card game called Bore while they were on the plane, and our boy was losing a lot of money. Naturally, he kept on betting and kept losing until Gilbert Arenas, who was also playing with them, started to trash talk Javaris, calling him a loser. When the plane landed, a desperate Javaris asked that they play again, but JaVale said he was done, and Javaris replied, "So now you're just gonna let me lose my money like that? You ain't even gonna give me the chance to win my money back? Aw, hell, that's the type of that gets you up in the streets. I'll just shoot you then." The next day, Arenas brought unloaded guns to the dressing room and told Javaris to pick one, but Javaris didn't need one of Arenas' guns. He pulled out his own gun, but his was loaded. He cocked the weapon and aimed it at Arenas. No shots were fired this time, but Javaris would fire a shot and kill a mother of 4 later in his life. Both Arenas and Javaris were suspended and put on probation. After that, Javaris never played again in the NBA. Even though Javaris never played again in the NBA, he did not stay out of the news. He was constantly getting involved in one street fight or the other. He was also arrested and infected for drug trafficking in January 2014. One fateful night in 2011, Javaris and his cousin Douglas Gamble took his black SUV, having loaded guns with them to get revenge on a rival gang member who Javaris believed had robbed him. Javaris apparently didn't mean to harm anyone, he just wanted to scare the people who had robbed him into returning what they had stolen from him. Crittenton and his cousin fired guns from inside the car, and one of the stray bullets hit Julian Jones in the hip, who later died at the hospital. Javaris pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter with a weapon and aggravated assault with a firearm, and was sentenced to 23 years in prison and 17 years of probation. Javaris' story is proof and an example to anyone out there that guns are not toys, and how 1 minute of bravery and yet complete stupidity could ruin not just your own life, but the life and family of another innocent person. LiAngelo Ball. Basketball players often get into headlines every now and then, but there was no bigger scandal from a basketball player in 2018 than that of LiAngelo. So much that the President of the United States had to get involved. That was how much of a big deal it was. When you think about it, the Ball family haven't been shy of controversies. In fact, they have built much of their reputation and fame out of controversies, but this was the biggest one yet. LiAngelo was still in UCLA when this happened. He was playing college basketball at UCLA. The basketball team had a match with Georgia Tech, and it was set to be played in China. So LiAngelo and his teammates took off to China. The game was not set to happen until 3 days later, so the boys took their time to go on a tour around the city. The whole drama began when Cody Riley, Jalen Hill, and Ball were all together, and they decided to visit a Louis Vuitton shop just beside their hotel. Ball saw a pair of glasses that he liked and wanted to get, so he handed his credit card, but unluckily for him, the cashier returned the declined card to him. The 3 college players didn't seem happy with the rejection and decided to steal. I don't know what's more dumb, either the decision to steal or the fact that they thought they could get away with it at a Louis Vuitton shop that's heavily guarded with cameras and security. Like, come on, bro. LiAngelo and his boys took advantage of a 90-minute window look around the lakeside around their team hotel, re-entered the store, and each of them took a pair of sunglasses without paying. They went back to their team hotel thinking that they had gotten away with it, but not quite. The next morning, on the 10th of November, police swarmed by the hotel and arrested LiAngelo and his teammates. They were interrogated and then thrown into prison. What's even more damning is that they shoplifted in China, a country that does not take lightly to thieves or stealing. For that crime, they would have been facing 3 to 10 years jail time. Ball and his 2 teammates initially hesitated to confess to their crimes, but after a few interrogations, they confessed to their crimes and were thrown in prison afterward. The crazy thing was that LiAngelo was risking his entire NBA career even before it began for a couple of glasses that didn't even cost up to $100. The scandal was so big that former United States President Donald Trump had to come in and flex some of his muscles. Trump got on a call with the Chinese president and pleaded on the boys' behalf, and after 3 days, they were allowed to leave. They couldn't even feature in the game they came to play. After some time, Ball and his father showed up on TV to discuss the robbery incident. He said,
"And we left thinking we'd just get away. You know how kids think. I didn't realize till I got back to my hotel. I'm like, that was stupid, but by then it was too late, and then sure enough, the next morning the police came and got us. Oh, it was horrible. They take your clothes, you wear like whatever they have for you, a little jumpsuit or whatever, take your shoestrings, and then you just sit in a cement cell for however long. It's just you and then all the officers, and they don't speak English.
Well, at least he realized his mistakes. The sad part for LiAngelo was that he never made the NBA draft. I think it had more to do with the off-court scandal than his ball abilities. Well, I guess that's what you get for acting on peer pressure and not stopping to think for yourself. Yo, I know you see these two videos on the screen right now. There's one on the left, one on the right, and you were just about to click away. Don't be like that. Click on one of the videos. Two great videos right here. They're both fire. I'll see you there.